Welcome back to the second theme of this particular learning unit, which is learning unit number 6. And the second theme covers off project control. And at the end of this theme, you should know and understand the control process, discuss and apply the different approaches to updating and controlling the project schedule, and also discuss the critical success factors relating to project scheduling. You can have a look in your textbook. It is on pages 166 to 176. So let's have a look at the project control process. The project control process is quite an important part, simply because remember, when you look at project management, we look at the POC process, which is planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. The control process is there to verify and ensure that you track along your project plan that you've put in place. You must have regular meetings. In the case of most projects, they have weekly meetings. In some cases, they have daily scrums. And a scrum is just a very quick meeting each morning to determine what is going to be done that particular day. But most projects, you'll have a weekly meeting. In some cases, you'll have a monthly meeting, especially if it's long projects that are multiple years. But in those cases, you'll find that the smaller parts of those projects are sort of done in small chunks at a time, and those the small team would then meet more regularly. You must gather data on actual performance, and this is where the reporting comes in, and it is so important. You must record changes versus the plan, and you must monitor the progress. So figure 5.13 looks at a control process in which you establish a baseline, which is your project schedule. You perform the project, which is part of the project phases, and during each one of the project periods, you collect data, you incorporate that data into a project plan, you update, you analyze trends, you check, is there corrective action that's needed? So this is a pause. Is there corrective action that's needed? If there is, then you identify those actions and you recalculate. If there is no actions, you wait for the next update to occur. And that is so important because the project schedule is what you work with, but it's also meant to give you and allow enough flexibility for you to be able to shift and change and be agile enough in order to make changes. However, changes should not be material in such a way that it affects cost and it affects the timeline. The effect of actual schedule performance. So if you look at total slack, we were looking at slack earlier. So which is the difference between when a project needs to be completed versus the actual final activity. So in this case, we look at the effect of actual finishing time. So the required completion time is 20 days to remove the old wallpaper, patch the walls, and put up new wallpaper. It's 7 plus 5 plus 3. And in that case, the required completion time is 20 days. But in this case, if we add up all the activities, it only takes 3 plus, it only takes 15 days. So let's have a look, which means that there is a slack of 5 days or float of 5 days in which any one of these activities can be delayed by. Now suddenly we have a across the box a completed activity. We've completed this particular activity and the actual finish time was actually 10 days. It didn't take 7 days as initially we thought, which now means that activity number 2 starts on day 10. So it is early start is 10 plus 5 is 15. So now day finish off at 15. Early start is day 15 plus 3 is day 18, which then leaves us with 18 minus 2, 18 minus 20, 20 minus 18, which leaves us with 2 days slack. Because we've updated based on what actually happened during the project. You have to incorporate those changes into the project. You have to update the project regularly, and you have to also be able to be flexible enough in order to make those changes very quickly, and also be able to anticipate some changes as well. So if something happens in a particular sequence of events, you need to understand that if something happens to this particular activity, what effect will it have on this activity which is happening 3 steps or 4 steps down in the network. Early change may have less impact than later change, which means that if something happens to this activity, it might not have such a big impact. But if something happens to this activity, which is sort of 1 step away from finish, it will have a much bigger impact on the final completion time. You must manage requested changes. You must estimate the impact. You must get customer and client approval, and you must publish the revised plan as soon as you have. Once you've updated it with any changes, you must forecast that plan and also project when the project will be finished. And you must put in actual finish dates of completed activities at the same time. So you've got to plan running on one side, and then you have your actuals running next to it in order to compare constantly to, if we said that we're going to be on day 20, on day 10, where are we actually? And constantly update the project schedule. Determine if any changes occur in the critical path. That is why it's so important that you have a critical path, that you have a list of activities that you know you cannot mess with. If you mess with these list of activities, it will have a material effect on the entire project. So if anything happens to a specific set of activities on the critical path, then it will have a big impact on the completion time. It might have an impact on cost and ultimately customer satisfaction. The schedule control steps, as I said earlier: analyze the schedule, take corrective action, decide specific corrective actions to be taken, revise the plan, incorporate the changes, recalculate the schedule, and publish that schedule to the entire project team and, most importantly, to the client. Repeat steps if not acceptable results. If you have not achieved a specific result, apply efforts to pass with negative slack. So where you find that you have done the calculation and you already know that there 2 steps down the network, you're going to be running into negative slack, you now need to start putting some time and effort into those activities along that path to see where you can accelerate activities to make them run faster, or in which you can even maybe cut out some activities or reduce the time spent on some of those tasks. Change may also shift the critical path as well, so be mindful of that. And there's a trade-off of cost and scope. And this is quite important because ultimately every change that you make has an impact on cost, because time is cost. And ultimately it might also have an impact on the scope of the project in terms of the deliverable that you need to present to your client at the end. Project management softwares can be used to schedule the different functions, and it is very good to be able to use project management software in this particular way. You can calculate all your early starts, your early finishes, your late start and your late finishes at a click of a mouse. It calculates the total slack and the critical path. But if you don't understand how these calculations go, if you don't understand what impact these calculations have, then knowing what they are through just the software presenting it to you is a problem, because you need to understand how they come about, what the calculations are, in order to fully understand the impact of it on the actual project. If you look at Agile project management, it's a different project management philosophy. They follow a Scrum approach in which the different participants, there's a product owner, a development team, and a Scrum Master. The Scrum Master is just another word for a project team leader. And essentially what they do is, again, each morning, Agile project management, they have a lot more meetings. They break down the task in smaller sections. So what they tend to do is they meet more often, and each morning, literally, they'll have a small scrum, and they will determine these are the things that we need to do today. And then tomorrow morning, they meet again and they review the previous day. Have we achieved what we needed to do? And then in that way, they can respond very quickly. That's why it's called Agile project management. And also, every task owner can ask for help. So in the morning, they say that, listen, I started on this yesterday, I couldn't finish it, I need help with finishing it. And somebody with slack, someone with capacity, meaning that they finish their task earlier than what they thought it would take, can then pick up where that person is struggling. And Agile project management is normally done in a in the project software development situations, game development situations. It is done in short bursts of projects that need to be delivered internally inside organizations. Not so much in construction, but really in software development and so forth. Advertising agencies also tend to use Agile project management type principles in the way they manage different projects. And that brings us to theme number 3.